Hi, I'm James Muir and this is a screencast for Make More Noise. Today we're going to talk about something again slightly different from where we've been in the past. This is a remix opportunity for an artist called Imogen Heap, and it's a track that she's referring to as the song that never was. I think the idea with this is it was a track that she recorded for another project and it never got released, and very, very kindly she's released the stems now on the internet so you can do your own interpretation of it or build a whole new track from scratch. First thing to say is where you need to go and get the files. So if you Google Imogen Heap and the song that never was, you're going to come up with a bunch of entries, some of which will be versions that people have already created. Or if you get onto soundcloud.com, you can find the actual files here where they're laid out either as a bounce, which is all of the vocal tracks combined at the top here, or individual tracks, and including some backing vocal stems and delay stems and a click track. The other site you should have a quick look at is Twestival FM, which you can see here, and this is where I first came across it. And if you scroll down the screen here, again, same sort of idea, you can see the SoundCloud player embedded here on the screen, and then you've got some stems downloadable for various different versions. Okay, well, I've downloaded the vocal stems in WAV for Pro Tools, but I'm actually going to be doing this in Logic because I prefer Logic to Pro Tools, which is a totally personal and subjective choice. Don't want to get involved in any discussions about what's better. But I just wanted the highest quality files I could get, which obviously will be WAVs rather than MP3s, which is a compressed format, or AACs, which is also a compressed format. So I've got all those files in a folder here on my external hard drive, which I'm just going to drag in from my other screen. And here's the folder. You can see the song that never was, and in this folder is the audio files. So the next thing we're going to do is drag those audio files into Logic. I'm going to have a look at some different things you can do to add some creative spark to your own remix. Okay, so we've got Logic ready to fire up here. So I'm going to create an empty project and then create an audio track just to get past that window. Now the next thing to do is over here, click on Media and then go to Browser, and then you can browse to the download location of the files. So in my case, they're on the external hard drive I've got there, Song That Never Was, audio files, and there's our audio files. So if I click on the top one and then shift click on the bottom, it selects everything in between, and then I can pull those files directly into the arrange window. And as you can see, a little green plus signs come up there showing that we're copying. So drag them into the arrange window and create new tracks. Okay, and now we've got a bunch of new tracks in our window. It's just put audio 1 down the bottom. I'm going to shift that back to the top of the screen because I'm going to use that in a second for something else. And I'm just going to change the order of these a little bit. So I've got the lead vocal and the lead vocal double at the top, because the next thing we're going to do is talk about time stretching. So I think the easiest way to demonstrate that is on the lead vocal track, but the same process will apply for all the other tracks as well. So shut the media browser now because we don't need that anymore. And I'm just going to zoom the screen in a little bit and so you can see what we're doing. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is drag an Apple loop, drum loop into the window so you can actually hear what we're doing tempo-wise, and just try and find something fairly basic that'll enable us to hear the beat while we're time stretching so we can actually check that our timing's right. Okay, that'll do for the purposes of what we're doing. So I can drag that into the arrange window, and then if I move my mouse cursor near to the top of the audio region, I get this little loop icon up, and I can just drag that through the whole project. So we've got something to denote tempo all the way through. I'm just going to mute all of these tracks now, apart from the lead vocal, which I do by selecting them all and using the M key command. And we'll just zoom that so it's all a little bit more clear. And let's have a listen to some of it. So as you can hear, our drum loop is much faster tempo than the vocal. So the next thing one would do in this situation is figure out the actual tempo. I'll save you a little bit of time on that one and tell you that it's 95, which we change by coming down here to the tempo. Double click where it says 120 and type in our new value of 95, so that's 95 BPM, and we'll have another listen. Didn't I tell you so? It's alright. It's all in the process. It's alright. Okay, that's much better. That's all in time now. So the next thing we're going to discuss is actually how to do time stretching, and this is time stretching in the arrange window. As always with Logic, there's a bunch of different ways of achieving every task, but this one we're going to focus on the simplest, well, in my opinion, the simplest and the most visual way of doing it. So the next thing I'm going to do is going to zoom in on this chorus, and we're just going to chop the chorus so we've got that topped and tailed. Excuse me, clicked on the wrong thing there. Okay, now interestingly on this vocal it starts a little bit ahead of the beat. So if we put up a normal loop here, which would be the length of the chorus, which is 8 bars, you'll find that the front of this vocal is chopped off because it starts just before the downbeat of the first beat of the chorus.
Didn't I tell you so? It's alright. It's all in the...
So what I'm going to do is just take our loop and drag it back there by 1/4 of a bar, so we get the first so that vocal comes in at the same time as the loop starts. And then if we make a cut where the loop starts, which you can actually see there by moving the scissors backwards and forwards, you can see where the line is and scrub across the vocals. So one at the beginning and then one at the end. And then if we just select that region we've created and go to audio, in the audio menu you've then got this time machine algorithm option, so we're just going to go for universal here. If you don't like the sound you're getting, it might be worth checking out complex. Percussive is probably not appropriate for a vocal, so I'm going to leave it on universal, and then adjust region length to locators is the command we're going to use. But first we need to change the tempo to what we want our final tempo to be. So in this case we're going to go back to that 120 we had when we opened the session up. Have a quick play. I mean, again, it's going to be exactly the same. Beat's going to be much faster than the vocal.
It's alright. Didn't I...
But now by going back to the audio menu and selecting adjust region length to locators, we're going to time stretch the vocal so it's at 120 BPM and we'll be in time with our loop at 120. This is going to take a couple of seconds. And there you go. Here's our vocal time stretched, and as you can see it's now back to being the same length as the loop we put up earlier, and the tempo here still set to 120 as opposed to the 95 we started with. So if we press play now, the vocal should be in time with our beat at 120 BPM.
It's alright. Didn't I tell you so? It's alright. It's all in the process. It's alright. You're all set to go. So don't give me that look, 'cause I know you're up to it.
And that's how you use Logic to time stretch. So if you're doing an Imogen Heap remix and you want to take the tempo up and you're using Logic, I think that's the simplest and most effective way of time stretching it. Another little thought, I tend to do it in these small little groups, so I'll tend to do the choruses at one time, the verses and another, BV separately, rather than time stretch the whole track. I think A, it sounds better and it tends to keep its timing a little bit tighter, and it's simpler for you to keep your head around which bit is which, because now we've got this region, we can actually rename it, so we can call this chorus 1, Imogen Heap, Song That Never Was, and we can keep a tighter control on what files we're using for what in our song. Hope some of you found that useful. I'm James Muir, and this has been a screencast from Make More Noise.